From the South Carolina School Boards Association, I'm Scott Price, SCSBA Executive Director, and welcome to the Voice of School Boards. It's in the complex world of public education that school board members find themselves squarely at the forefront. From the loftiness of policy development and having a vision for schools to the rudiments of budget developing and building classrooms, school board members are tasked with addressing the challenges and inequities in education. Oftentimes, in the process of doing so, school board members' voices and that of other local leaders become a whisper. The goal of this podcast is to educate, amplify, and engage in a civil discourse on where we've been in education, where we are now, and where we hope to go in the future. Along the way, we'll meet some very interesting people and also have a little fun. So, joining us on this episode of The Voice of School Boards is Dr. Akil Ross, and Dr. Ross is the Superintendent for the Lexington-Richland School District 5. Dr. Ross, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't say congratulations to you on being named the 2027 Superintendent of the Year for the South Carolina Association of School Administrators. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Now, is this something that you were surprised with, or did you even know? I guess you know you're in the running because they have a process of interviews and all that.
That's correct. So they take nominations, and I was very surprised by the nomination and just honored. And then they named their finalists, and it was great to be considered amongst the finalists there, and then we do interviews right before a meeting. And so I had the interview panel meet, and we conclude the meeting with announcing the superintendent of the year. So it was kind of really fast tracked there, and been through this process kind of before with principal of the year. So it's just an honor to be named amongst your peers as a finalist, but then to receive the recognition is amazing.
Well, and you were also, I guess, months previous to being superintendent of the year, you were, I think PSTA had awarded you with administrator of the year.
That's right. But it was the same thing. So it's kind of a great week for School District 5. As superintendent, none of the work that you do is possible without the great people that serve the district. That's from our volunteers, our community groups, our board, it's really our staff and students. And so we have great leaders from our chiefs, the directors, principals. And so I just sat really benefiting from the collective work that they do. That award was really about the communication efforts that our district is made to tell our D5 story, as we say.
Well, and that's, you really kind of answered my next question, because it was, looking at your bio and preparing for this interview, you have received a lot of accolades over your career as an educator. And what does that mean to you? I mean, and again, you just sort of answered it.
Yeah.
But yes, crystallize that a little bit.
I think it's a representation of, knowing our why. And I think telling our story. And as an administrator, your path is to lead people somewhere, but they have to follow. And I think having the title means nothing if you're not leading people to a better place. And what I've learned from principal to superintendent is I try not to lead people where I think they should go, but where we believe we should go. And I think it's just a direct relationship to us moving together and really telling that story of how we move to a new place.
Okay. And again, lots of people behind you and with you in these accolades. So thank you for that. Tell me a little bit about what does Superintendent of the Year do? I know that you make the rounds, but you're in line for national superintendent also, correct?
That's correct. That's what I understand. It's, you're now becoming to represent your state. And I've had the opportunity to do this as a principal. I was named finalist for National Principal of the Year and then Principal of the Year, and almost a decade ago. So what I've learned is, it's not so much saying that you're the best, but here's a very unique story that you have to tell. And this story benefits the field of education. And I think that's what it's about. It's just telling the story of what School District 5 has accomplished. And like you said, all the people that support this district is really telling their story. And if that's the one story that this nation wants to lift up, then I'm honored to represent that story.
Well, we're honored and pleased to have you represent South Carolina. So looking forward to that.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your story. What led you to where you are today, and a little bit about where you're from and all
Scott,
that.
I appreciate that. I think a lot of times we don't examine our story, right? We're so focused, mission focused on helping others develop them. But I was least likely to be the educator. That's my story, right? I failed the third grade, and so being the statistics of a student who repeats the third grade. I got straight F's, and so I had all the marks, right? I was special ed, student in poverty, minority student, living in the inner city, single parent household, IEP student, and a discipline problem. Like I had all of the check marks. And if you look at the students who have those check marks, those identifiers, the outcomes are not good. And
Right.
so it was my second third grade teacher. Her name was Miss Shivers. Miss Shivers taught a different way, and she had such a high expectation that I didn't have. Like our expectations were not the same. I expected to fail. I believed I was not school material, and
Right.
she taught a different way. She did not. She knew growth mindset before the book was published. And she taught us the power of not yet. And there was a poem that she would recite. And I learned in my second year in the third grade, it was good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. And that stuck with me. When all the students went on to chapter 2, if you did not pass chapter 1, Michelle was kept you there.
Right.
She was doing this individualized instruction before it was a buzzword. But she believed that you were going to do the work. She was going to hold you to that standard. And her resilience, I remember the first time, Scott, like trying in school. She praised me for trying, not for
Mhm.
success, but for progress. And that was powerful because it was the first time I was rewarded for academics. It was on my progress, not and that became success. And so if progress was success, then I could always get better. And I just kept saying that good, better, best. Never let it rest till good is better and your better is best. And I didn't know if a lot of students felt that way, that you didn't have to be the straight A student to be rewarded, that you just had to make progress. I just had to get better. I went from straight F's in the third grade, repeating the third grade. So by the time I was in the sixth grade, I won 2 citywide essay contests. That's what transformation is all about. That's the power of education, right? It can transform students. And that's my story. I feel like I owe what Ms. Chavez did for me to the students I serve.
Well, I was going to ask you that. How did that experience in that first year where you said you were held back, and then the second year? I'm talking about from a teacher perspective. How did going forward when you were coaching and teaching and working your way through education system? How did that impact on your approach?
This is going to sound crazy. I remember the look in the eyes of the two teachers.
Right.
The teacher one, I still know her name. I won't forget her face. I don't say it, but I know exactly who she is. And I know the look where I did not believe she believed in me.
Okay.
She saw what she saw. Look at all the data points, right? It was all of
Right.
the data points say he's not going to do any work. He can't do this, and I wasn't. And so we were both aligned in our expectations about what I was going to do. The second third grade teacher, Ms. Chavez, her look was different. It wasn't when I turned in bad work, because I turned in bad work to both of them. I acted out in both classes. But the second time I turned in bad work, it was given right back to me with the words, "This is sad. Do it again."
Right.
And I remember the sternness of, "What do you mean do it again?" Making me requiring a kid with all F's who has all the excuses, right? And he got the single parent, he's in poverty, he's in the city, he's getting in trouble, his IEP, he's repeated the third grade. I got all the checks. What do you mean do it again? With what? And I remember the first time trying. And that's where I can remember the look. She expects more out of me. And that's
Okay.
why you try. And I think when I coach in teachers, I go back to what do you believe in this child?
Right.
Before we get into the strategic plan or the instructional strategies, it's just what
Right.
do you believe? And so because of that, at every place I've led, I ask 3 critical questions. And it gets right to that second, third grade teacher of mine.
Right.
First is, why do you do this?
Okay.
And why is important? I asked the superintendent, I asked our entire district, why do you work in this district? 956 of them responded. And they said in that survey, we coded their responses. 83% said it's about the community. I want to work where I live. 86% said two verbs. I love students and I want to see them grow. And 100% of them said it's about our students. And so that became our mantra here as a district. We love and grow our students. But it goes right back to what that second teacher believed. Right? In order to see a child grow, you got to love them. And psychology says what we do is based on what we believe, and what we believe is based on what we think. And so we constantly tell those stories of achievement, of growth, so that they believe that every child should feel loved in our schools and have demonstrated academic success in our schools. And now our strategic plan is built around those two statements.
Awesome. Awesome. So hearing that, when did you discover your why about what you're doing? And I mean, when did you, what did you, in the third grade, did you think,
In the third grade, I want to get out of school. I can tell you this: I was very fortunate to attend Duke University. And they're on a football scholarship, and education was nowhere near what I was looking. I admire our teacher cadets. That know in high school that they're going to be homegrown teachers. That was not me. So very quickly, I found that the NFL dreams were not going to be a reality for me.
you had dreams?
Oh yeah, it still sounds familiar. We played Clemson, and a guy named Woody Dantzler taught me very quickly to go fill out a job application because I was not going to the next level. But
That's a name from the past.
yeah. I was on Sports Center for other people's highlights. Let's put it like that. So, but either way, when I was trying to find my way, and you identify yourself as a football player. And so I said, well, I'm going to coach. And so, but I had and she's long past now, but I had a professor in college that said, you need to think about taking education class. And there were a few other football players in the class, so we took them. And Duke's program is not a degree, it's a certificate. So you have to major in something else. And so, I just stuck with it. And they will make you do elementary and a middle school site and a high school site. And when I got to the high school site, I felt home because the coaches said, well, look, you coach and you're taking these ed classes. Hey, you want to come coach with us?
Yeah.
I was like, this is it. I said, I'll make it to the NFL by starting at this local high school, and I'll coach my way up to the NFL. And in there was a few students who couldn't dress out because they didn't have the grades.
Okay.
And I think that was the first point that education kind of meant something to me. I think that my experience came back. And so as a sophomore in college, taking these education courses and having that internship at the high school, seeing those kids that could not dress out because they did not have the grades, I opened up a study hall.
Okay.
I wasn't really that helpful on the field anyway. So I said,
you helped in other ways. You got the kids.
Yeah, I did. My professor entered me into a fellowship. It was called the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, and it was a program to bring minorities into the field of education. And say, hey, we have this student, he's an athlete, and he's doing study halls for local high school students who were having academic difficulty. That won me a fellowship. And now I have money to go to graduate school, but I must stay in education. And at that point, I was locked in. I refined my major and I did the certificate and received the fellowship. So upon graduation, I had a free master's.
Okay.
And I decided I had my education certificate already. So I decided to pursue a master's in administration.
Okay.
0 years teaching.
And that's a little bit of a leap, Yeah,
it was a big leap. So I took the first year off, the fellowship and the University of South Carolina encouraged it. So how about you go teach before you start thinking about being an administrator? And so I did my first year of teaching. Second year, I took the fellowship at the University of South Carolina and finished my MED 2 years later. And within that time, I still kept that ministry of helping what I felt were the students who were like me in grade school. So my principal, I was at Eau Claire High School at that time, said to me, "Would you like to be an administrator?" And I was, I've just been teaching 3 years, but if you think I'm ready, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I started a program called the Mr. Eau Claire's Gentleman's Showcase, really to help. We had 22 young men who I wanted the community to see them in different light. And so we did after school programs on job training, career preparation, and just how to be a gentleman. Had speakers come in, and I think that's what really got the principal interested in me joining the administration. Well, lo and behold, I started interviewing other places and earned the position of assistant principal at Chapin High School.
Okay.
That's the journey. It was amazing to go from Eau Claire to Chapin High, and then 5 years later, I'm principal at Chapin High School.
Okay. And you took a little bit of a hiatus, and tell us a little bit about Hard ED.
Yeah, I call it Hard Ed. It was so all these paths just seemed to line up. And after National Principal of the Year, I have an opportunity to speak everywhere. So I am.
Yeah, I've heard you speak, and you're very inspirational.
Thank you. I was speaking across the country, multiple states, from California to Florida, Boston. I'm just. I went to Bangkok to speak. I mean, it was really cool. Had a chance to write, and I wanted to write a book, and so I took a position where I felt like I could do it all. It was a director's position, but I wasn't able to do it justice and do all of the speaking and writing. So I decided the district, if it needs somebody fully dedicated to that and not trying to do two things.
Right.
So I said, I'm just going to give up retirement, healthcare, everything. I just want to try this and do this. And for 3 years, built this consulting speaking position that was called Hard Ed. And it was really about telling that story of empowerment. And then right when I felt like it was really, really hitting stride, COVID hit and things changed. And so I started to focus more on executive coaching. And that was, I felt like a real neat niche for me. And then right in my backyard, there's an opportunity to be an interim superintendent after a very tough transition here in our district. So I took advantage of that, but I still didn't, I kind of got a little controversy because I didn't think it was going to be long. So I said, look, I'm still working hard in. So,
it had its perks or its advantages,
That's right. So I made the interim really a function of my consultant until there was a promise of a permanency. So that was a really good experience. And I learned, when you do payroll taxes, right, you think differently.
Yeah.
When you have to create the revenue in order to make payroll,
Right.
you just think business acumen kind of differently. And I think that was a good space to be in because as a superintendent, with a board that really has fiscal autonomy,
Right.
some people are only listening to not your academic, wins and objectives and goals. They just really care about the fiscal impact that you have on the local businesses. And to be able to hear those concerns and speak that language, I think has really helped me. So I do appreciate being in that position to learn that side of a business and how revenue is generated for schools on the local basis.
Well, I would agree with you that it probably did give you sort of a unique perspective that you were able to bring to the boardroom and bring to the position of superintendent that not everybody, probably anybody has.
Yeah, I mean, we've launched certain initiatives like Shop Local because of that. It's just understanding what our local businesses, how they carry public schools. We need to have this relationship between them and us so that we know that we benefit each other. We create your future employees, and you sustain us. And so if we can keep that system aligned, and just knowing that there's ways that we can help. And so we're building a small business incubator in Irmo High School to help create the new future business leaders. So that was a huge part of it.
Probably helps good many of your constituents understand better why it's an investment for them to support local public schools.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And that's the way the majority of our kids are in this state. And so, someone has to be there for when we make the 911 calls, right? For EMS, for police, for fire, for teachers, you know, we make those calls. It might not always be 911, but we make those calls for those public servants and the doctors, the engineers, those future leaders. We're generating those. And so I like the word you use. It's an investment into our greater good.
Just a few more things I wanted to touch on. I've got a long list here, of course, but I want to be mindful of your time. As you're talking to aspiring leadership, aspiring superintendents, or even first-year superintendents, I imagine you've mentored some folks. What is your advice to them?
Yeah, I think they have to be able to listen to as many perspectives. And then how do you condense that into a collective vision? And I think one of the things that we can get so task oriented where you're just kind of navigating the day or the moment that you're not leading anywhere and you're not taking the steps that need to be taken for a student like me. And I think I really in mentoring ask that superintendent to start with why. What is the why of your community, your board, your stakeholders, your principals? Because if we don't get that part right first, and I know strategic plans sound so robotic and boring sometimes.
Strategic.
Right, it does. But I think it is the number one key to get right as a superintendent. If you miss it, like everything is going to come back to that strategic plan. And if it's not aligned to everybody's true vision and mission, you're not aligned and nothing is going to really make sense. Everything is going to seem scattered and not connected. And people don't really have time to bring in all of your strategic plan goals and understand it, right? So we've condensed it down to just an image, and I wear this on my lapel.
Okay.
The heart represents that love, and we have 12 strategies that associate with that, and the stem represents growth, and we have
Okay.
12 strategies that represent that. Now, you may not know the 24 strategies, but you know the two
Right.
actions. We love our students, and we want to see them grow, and that's what we're about. And so everything we say is branded with that. That's our vision statement. You don't have the words, but you know it. We love and grow our students. And so you'll see hearts and stems all over this district
Okay. Well, I
because
appreciate you letting me know that.
it's just everywhere because that's what we believe. And I think your actions are driven by your beliefs and your beliefs are driven by your thoughts. So what are your people seeing? What are they exposed to? What do they believe? Because if you can touch what they believe, then the action will follow. And I think sometimes we start with action first. We don't touch the hearts where they believe.
Right. Along those lines, what do you love most about being superintendent, and what is most challenging to you about being superintendent?
What I love the most is walking the halls of schools. I love graduation. I love seeing it work. I love that. I think you get excited about building programs and referendum. I mean, you may not do that as a superintendent. Like, you get excited about passing the budget, but I really find out a lot of people that are following you in that budget process. They just want to see, did you give a teachers a raise? And that's pretty much it. But so a lot of the things you deal with, they're not big headline items there. Walking those buildings, right? And seeing those kids move through halls, the teachers have what they had, and they're just going at it. And you had a hand in making this happen.
Right.
Because you know that a kid like me is now getting an opportunity to achieve. And then, Scott, I think the most exciting is when the results show.
Right.
That this resulted in student improved outcomes. That's the love that, wow, all of this worked and students are doing better. I think the toughest part is dealing with politics, right?
Right.
Politics is people. When you amass so much resource together, I don't care what it's for education, for the church, whatever, it's going to come with politics. And we have to deal with that. That can be a distraction to our core. And so
And sometimes that's very intentional.
and look at our public discourse, right? I think are our adults showing our children how to handle conflict and and
Exactly.
how to handle, right? We're those examples. And so we want to model great behavior. And I think modeling how to handle disagreements Those are still the things that we have to work on as adults now. And I think for the tough part of the job is if we disagree, but we have the same goal, that's just part of it. I look forward to that collegial debate. But when we disagree and we don't have the same goals, that's political. And I
Right.
think that is the toughest part because we have to make sure that the resources of the district, it's human capital, it's financial, it's fiscal capital, physical capital, it's all focused on making sure our students feel loved in our schools and that they're able to grow.
The discourse, it used to be easier. Politics has always been there, but it used to be a lot easier,
Yes,
a lot of civil and all of that. And that's one of the things that SCSBA has been focusing on is trying to get civility back into the discussion about education, whether it's at the state level or at the local level. Politics is very important for, I think, any educational leader anymore, especially a superintendent. And the same thing with advocacy, because a lot of the politics, obviously it bleeds over into things that happen at the state and federal level. And there's got to be a real willingness to join the fray, so to speak, to support what is going to support your mission of educating kids.
Yeah, I think that's what has to be. You've done an amazing job of sharing the importance of civility, right? Because we don't have to all agree. We just have to be civil as we work towards the common goal. And so we appreciate that. And I think as superintendents, what we want everyone to know, and it's not just the board or community, but all people know that we listen to the board, and the board is a collective voice.
Yep.
And I think when an individual voice beats the collective, it creates a disconnect, right? And so to have these meetings where this group of 5 or 7 or 9 or 11, whatever it is, they can come together and they can discuss things in a very civil way. And then by majority vote say, this is our collective voice. Now we're going in that direction. That's how we envision it. And so accepting the will of the whole, that this is, when every person that I voted for didn't get elected, right? But I'm supporting what the democratic process has presented as the way forward because I love it's not right wing or left wing. I love the bird, right? I want the bird to fly. And so the entirety of it all
I've
needs
never
to
heard
be.
that before. I'm gonna steal that from you. How about I'll give you credit. Is there anything we've covered a lot of ground today, and is there anything that you have that I have neglected to ask you, or something that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I think it's a very deep interview. I appreciate it. But I think that those who are running or serving on our school boards, we know that one of the requirements or the ask is to visit school.
Right.
And I think as we visit schools, visiting the mind of what is our mission? And that is a reminder sometimes we can get so far away from that interaction between that student and that teacher, that child who's being transformed. And to know that for that moment that you served on the board, that you could help that transformational process, I think it would get us all back to our whys and that we would use the moments that we have, this just very brief moment that we have to serve, to do the best for our children. So that one day someone can say, because of their work, I'm better today. And I think that's what it's all about.
Well, then that is a wonderful reminder to my membership, and I appreciate you reminding us all of that because I think that's something that you're right, we can lose sight of that. Well, Dr. Ross, thank you for your time today.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for your service to our children and for your service in your district, Lexington 5. And again, congratulations. And look forward to your year as state superintendent and look forward to watching you progress on the national stage.
Oh, well, thank you so much, guy. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
Do the same, sir.
All right.
And that's it for this episode of the Voice for School Boards. Thank you for sharing your time with us, and we'll see you soon.